All right, what's up and what's going on, y'all? This is Al, and these are just my thoughts. And I'm gonna stick and follow and piggyback off what I was talking about earlier. And this was about the gig delivery game. To give you my story of how I got into this, it was 2021 and the pandemic came. Back then, up to that time when the pandemic came, I was a buyer and reseller for eBay. I used to go to estate sales, Goodwills, garage sales, and I was a big hitter when it came to how I ran the business. I looked for products that I could break down, and I used to sell them as reusable parts. So I sold parts merchandise, and I was making a killing, right? I started it back in 2013, and up to 2021, that is what I was. I was a parts dealer when it came to doing eBay sales, and I was doing really good at it. We were in a poker room, and I remember the owner, when the pandemic crisis came, sent word to the manager and said, shut it down, right? Everybody had to grab their chips, cash in, and we all had to leave the building. He was shutting it down because of the pandemic. I'm a retiree, and besides what I was doing with eBay, that was it. Poker was the other thing that I was doing at that time. When my stepdaughter, along with her husband, came to my home one day to visit, me and him in conversation, he was telling me what he was doing for extra money, and he was saying that he was making deliveries. And I can't remember what company he was working, but he just all fell into my lap. My stepdaughter was a marketer for an app down here called Favor, local app down here in Texas. Now, mind you, I'm doing what I'm doing. And a lot of times when we are doing what you're doing, you don't know what everybody else is doing, right? Unless they tell you. So I had never heard of any delivery apps. When I'm telling you this, I'm being straight honest. In 21, that was the first time that I ever heard of DoorDash, UBEREATS, GRUBHUB, Favor, right? Just to name a few. I didn't know anything about Ship It or any of this stuff that people were doing to make side hustle money. So they turned me on to it, and I said, okay, we got the pandemic. Are they allowing people to make deliveries? And I said, if so, what kind of money do you earn? So they said, it varies. And they told me how to get into the app. So basically I started off with Favor. And I got online. That's a local app down here in Texas. I got online, and I kid you not, the process was so easy. I filled out all the information. They did a background check, and I was in within seconds. And the reason why I know this to be true, because I got my first order after I was on, and they were here when it happened. So I know it was that same day. That first order that I got was from the house. I took my phone, and they told me that I would have to wait. If I get an order, my phone is going to give a signal about it, right? So I logged on the whole nine. I set it down, and within 20 to some 30 minutes, because it was an afternoon between 5 and 6, and all of a sudden my phone went off, and it said at that time I couldn't see because this was Favor. I had no idea what I was going to get paid, because Favor back in the days, you didn't know what you were going to get. You just knew you had an order, and they didn't display what you were making, right? Back in the days. So I didn't know anything. I was like a fish out of water with this. I went and took that order, delivered it, and it was a grocery run. It explained what I had to do. I pulled in, and somebody brought me groceries out. I said I had them, and then I took it to that address, dropped it off. It was easy, common sense, right? I just treated it like I was going to my own home, except I was putting it at somebody's door and then walking off, going about my business. When it was all said and done and it posted, it said I made $50. I was like, what? $50? Mind you, now I got a 2021, at this time, a 2021 brand new Chevy Tahoe is what I got. So I'm doing my deliveries in this Tahoe, uneducated. I don't understand anything about the miles. I don't understand anything about the gas. I don't even fathom that gas burns out of your vehicle that fast by doing these deliveries. I'm driving my truck around like normal before I jumped into the delivery game, because I used to have to go out to places and restock my sales from the Goodwills, estate sales, from garage sales. So that was normal running around for me. The delivery game, though, was something totally different, right? Something totally different. When I jumped into this, Favor was the first app that I jumped on. And I was like a chicken with his head cut off, fish out of water, like I say. I had no clue. So I knew that I thought I had lucked up and I had got that order from the house. I didn't even think about keeping it here, right? As a strategy to say I can save a lot of time and energy if I don't have to go out in town. I just do my runs from here, right? That didn't fathom with me. What happened was I did a background and it showed me all the restaurants that they deliver from. So I said, in order for that to happen, then I need to drive out here to these places. So I got out there and I'm picking up deliveries for Favor. Mind you, like I said, Favor does not tell you anything. So you have to educate yourself. So what I had to learn real quick was distance, right? I said, okay, I'm being paid pretty good, but I don't want to burn myself. So I need to make sure that I start studying zip codes, right? And that is what I started doing. If I was in a certain zip code, then I said, okay, I need to make sure that whenever my orders come up, the majority of them come from this zip code area right here, because you can see the address and you can see the zip code. So that is how you base your decisions, right? When it came to Favor, because you didn't know what you were getting paid yet. Even though we were paying well, they were paying us good. And Favor at that time, they used to do the promotions. So you had to make so many deliveries and you were guaranteed a certain amount of money, which was good money. They would guarantee you anywhere from $500 to $750 over the weekend if you made so many deliveries for them. And that was good money to make, right? If you were able to be lucky to keep your miles down. And in a way, I wasn't able to do that because those orders were all over the place. But only thing I seen was $550, $750. Let's do this, right? I went into a restaurant and I had a Favor run, and that is how I got turned on to DoorDash, right? This lady was working behind a counter and she said, I never heard of this app, but she said, I get a lot of people coming in here from an app called DoorDash, right? And mind you, I think a lot of people were just not learning about these apps. When the pandemic happened, people that was doing them, they knew about it, but people that was caught up with the pandemic and everything, that had other things going on in their lives, they didn't know what these apps were. And she said, I get a lot of people coming in here from a company called DoorDash. She said, you ought to try them because we have it ready. You don't order it. That was the thing about Favor. When it came to restaurants, you had to place the order for the customer. They didn't automatically go through, right? There was no phone in, there was no going online, make an order, and then the restaurant would have it ready when you got there. DoorDash did. So I jumped on DoorDash, and just like that, I was in again. I only kept DoorDash for a month in my area, which was a good area. But they used to give us all these Walmart orders, and I would turn them down. And they would just constantly keep doing it over and over again. Everything with Walmart. And I was like, man, I'm not feeling that. So basically, I gave up on them type of runs a long time ago. And I just said, no, I'm done. So I got rid of it. Next up, Uber Eats. So Uber Eats along with GRUBHUB. Uber Eats and GRUBHUB wound up being my main bread and butter when it came to me doing these apps. And Uber Eats took over the main focus of my delivery game. I had studied it, and it was an easy map to understand, and it was paying well. When I say paying well, I'm talking about we used to go to Starbucks and we would set up shop. I met a friend over there, right? Me and this guy became cool because he worked Starbucks and I worked Starbucks. We both worked it at the same time. We didn't step on each other's toes. We gave each other phone numbers to one another, and then we would call each other and say, hey, what's the business? What's the action like? We were grown men, and we'd say, hey, it's going on. Come on over. And then we would set up shop, and basically what we did was we kind of like owned the parking lot for the most part, there was another guy that jumped in a little bit, but he wasn't a regular. He didn't know how to do it like we did. And we would just sit there in the morning and wait for these orders to come through. And we did hospitals, we did schools, we did businesses in the morning. And we talking about $25 plus. The hospital was right down the road, but the people that worked in the hospital couldn't get to Starbucks. They didn't have the time. They had to get to work early. We was online by 6:30 in the morning. So these orders would come through anywhere between 7 and 8, which means at the hospital, they had to be on at work, right? So they would make these orders and we would get them, and he would get them for the hospital. I get them for the hospital. Everybody at the hospital was ordering Starbucks. And we were making $20, $25 here, $30 somewhere, 18 sometimes, just to go up and down, just to go back and forth to this hospital until, you know, it all ran out. By 9 o'clock, 9:30, hospital would be done, right? So now you got lunch. And when lunch happened, Uber Eats, anything dealing with McDonald's, Jason's Deli, Chinese restaurants, all that. Back in 21, money was coming in, right? So then I got really lucky. And on my side of town, we got so many restaurants, right? But they're big name restaurants, bistros, steakhouses, things like that. These are main ingredient restaurants. We're talking about the big dogs where people have business meetings and stuff like that in these restaurants. So I got lucky one day and I had on Uber Eats, and all of a sudden I got this $55 run to go to Uber Eats. To go to this restaurant for a customer. I go in. Back then, they did not take the orders, but you could make them, right? They gave us their black card from Uber Eats, and we could go in to that restaurant. And what it was, if they wasn't busy, right? And this is when I say you have to have good knowledge and be able to talk to people, right? And you let them know, hey, I'm not going to be coming in here on a regular basis, but if you know you can fit me in when I come in to get these orders, I highly appreciate it. And that goes a long way, right? Just by being courteous. And that turned into a diamond for me. That turned into a diamond. I would get these orders, and because they got to know who I was, whenever I came in to place them, if they wasn't too busy, they would take the time to make that order, because Uber Eats wasn't on their list. Uber Eats had them on their list, but the restaurant itself, they didn't have Uber Eats as a sponsor to pick up from. They still had people that came into their restaurant during the pandemic. They didn't shut down. A lot of them didn't. So it was pretty easy. I got the chance to test it and see what other restaurants would come up. And I had like 3 to 4 different restaurants in my area that were big ballpark hitters, right? Home run hitters. And I would make, man, when I say almost close to $100 an hour on some nights, that is real talk. Anybody that was doing this in 21, they know I'm telling the truth. Those numbers are real. They existed, and we saw some serious cash. I got paid so much money from these apps that when it came time to get done, I'm in my truck right now, but I'm at my house, the driveway, I was able to do the driveway. I paid cash to get that done. I knocked down a bathroom that we wanted to make into a walk-in shower. I paid a person to come in and contract that job for me, and I paid them cash to do exactly that. Give us a walk-in shower, redo the bathroom, vanity, and all that kind of stuff. I paid cash for that, and it was a done deal. And then I got recessed lights put into my ceilings in the home, because the house was built in 2002. So it didn't have recessed lights and stuff like that in it. But I got somebody to come in and cut holes and put my recessed lights in all these different rooms for me. And I did that all through the apps. Plus, I went back out and bought cash a used vehicle. I took my 21 Chevy Tahoe and I traded it in for a 2022 Chevy Tahoe, right? Lost a little bit, had to put a little bit of money on the back end, but that's okay. No big deal, right? Fast forward, 22 came around, bought that used car, and then all of a sudden, the numbers dropped. They wasn't paying anything anymore. we were seeing $3 and $4 runs, $5, $6 runs. We thought it was a glitch. Everybody thought it was a glitch, except for the ones that probably have been doing this way before us. When I jumped in it in 21, I jumped in it right at the right time. The pandemic was here. Rest in peace to those that lost their lives. But that is the number game that was going on at that time. I think the apps, I didn't even pay attention who was paying us. That is how much money we were making. I didn't know where the money really was coming from. I didn't know it was from a customer or was it coming from the app, because I didn't read none of that stuff. Nobody was. You just got paid and you looked at your bank account. You didn't pay attention to saying, hey, so-and-so, great job. You got the tip from this so-and-so. Send back a register card. I wasn't doing any of that stuff back in that time. I didn't start doing stuff like that until after 22. That is when I started reading all the stuff about the ARs and all that. Man, I didn't have time to know what an AR was at that time. Acceptance rate. I didn't turn away orders. We were getting paid. How could you turn away an order? Regardless of what the miles were, as long as it wasn't something that was so crazy that you said, no, I'm not doing that. You did it because you were getting paid, right? That money was being paid quick and you didn't mind doing the runs at that time. But like I said, you fast forward, when that money dropped, that is when you started had to educate yourself. You had to play around with more apps now. I actually had to bring GRUBHUB and Favor back online, right? Like I said, I shut them down and I wasn't hardly using them. I would log on and then I would log back off because I was doing so good with UBEREATS. I wasn't doing no 3 apps at one time. I didn't have to. UBEREATS was paying everything at that time. But after 22, yeah, I had to bring Favor and I had to bring GRUBHUB back in. Fast forward again, up to 24. 24, I had to really drop UBEREATS because the orders just got crazy. There was no more orders coming through. So I jumped into the HEB runs under Favor. Favor had updated their apps. They started showing money. We could see exactly what we was getting ourselves into, right, before we accepted on order. And they had, they wasn't hiding anything. Everything was transparent. So I jumped into the delivery game when it came to groceries. And man, like I said before in one of my other videos, HEB is designated to come over here, right, on my side of town. That store that we used to work out of only came to this side. So you had to drive 7 to 8 miles to make a delivery. But we were making 35 plus. The best order I had was an $80 run to this guy. And he came out and he helped me get the stuff out. We put it in his garage. He was having some kind of get together and he wanted all the stuff, that he needed. And I got the order. I made $80 off of that, right? To come back into my neighborhood and make that delivery. A lot of people didn't even know that I lived here, right? That I was doing that because I jumped in it because it was a hustle. And I was doing eBay. And when eBay didn't work for me anymore because of the pandemic and I couldn't get to my resources that I needed to keep the business going, I had to shut down the store and I relied on the apps. And then over those years, I had to manipulate the system to understand, okay, this is falling off. Okay, we need to go here. This is falling off. We need to go to this one. And that's basically what I did. So in 25, though, is when it all just came to an end for me. I just decided to let it go. I was driving that used car that I had bought one day and the transmission, the light started flickering in the transmission. It was saying park, reverse, neutral, drive. It just started going like a multicolor all up and down and the car started jerking and everything like that. And I just told myself, okay, I guess it's a wrap because I'm not about to put any more money into it. I had the credit cards and all that kind of stuff, but I said, that's stupid. I'm not about to put no credit card money into this used vehicle just so I can keep doing these deliveries, just to have to make up that money to put back onto the credit card. So I said, it's a wrap, we done. And that's how I walked away from it in 2025, and I never looked back. So I can tell you, I had a great experience with the apps, and I wish that 21 never went away, that I wish that 2021 would have been the norm for doing the gig deliveries, because it is a lot of fun, but you need to make the money because you are responsible for everything and anything that happens with this. And if you don't know, you will find out. And if you run into a situation like I did with my vehicle, you really gonna find out, because let's just say I was dependent on that to make my money. There's no way, right? That is why I always tell people, do it, but make sure that if you're going to do it, that you can afford what comes with this, right? You can afford what comes with it. Because if you can't, I'm telling you, you're going to hurt yourself in the long run. And that's not what you want to do when it comes to these gig delivery apps, because they don't have a reach out service. They just don't. They don't have a reach out service. There's nothing they're going to do for you except say, okay, when you get yourself back in order, the apps are still here. That's just part of the business. So again, if you see this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. Let me know, what were you doing when you first, how you first came about getting into the gig delivery game? And are you still doing it? Because a lot of us did jump in 21, and some drivers are still doing it. After 2026, some drivers are still doing this. So are you someone that is still doing this? And I don't mean a gig tuber. I'm talking about somebody that actually relies on the apps itself. Or are you still doing it? So again, with that said, I'm out. Y'all be cool. Peace.